Hey guys, it's John McNamara, host, Running Vegas. We're talking local sports, business, real estate. If you guys like what you see, subscribe, follow us on Running Vegas podcast. Today we got a special guest, Austin Starr in the house.
Thanks for having me.
Virtue Real Estate Group,
Yep.
former Running Rebel.
Yep.
So we're gonna have a fun UNLV basketball pod.
Let's do it.
I need all the details from you.
All right, I'll see what I can do, see what kind of insight I can give, and go from there.
I'll take it. Take what I can
Sweet.
get. But fun note, Austin was the first guest on Run in Vegas. So
Yep.
It was kind of a goal of mine to go. I didn't go a whole year. My goal was to go a whole year with just a new guest. But the first one we did was in February.
Was it
And-
that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Time flies, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's the middle of UNLV basketball season.
Yep.
I'm like, I got to get you on. We got to talk basketball because I love UNLV basketball.
Yep.
Not loving the season,
Oof,
but
it's a rough season so far.
you're the man to talk to.
Let's do it.
Besides basketball, though, like, how's your year been?
It's been good.
yeah.
I've been doing a lot of different type of growth exercises. Moving forward, and this year was kind of in between. With work, life. Trying to see the balance, especially trying to grow my business as well. Took some time and traveled a little bit, visited family in Hawaii, went to Sedona. We had talked about previously too, but business has been good. I can't complain.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're traveling. Love Sedona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were just there yourself, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I
there
go
you go.
there at least once a year. So
There you go.
my brother got married there, so
Nice.
we visit there all the time. But so what? So you work on growth, like, what are you growing on? Like,
So this is my technically third year in real estate.
okay,
So this year, the beginning of this year, I kind of took last year now at this point in time.
yeah,
Change in how my work life situation was. My second year in, that new business entrepreneurial lifestyle. You're really just grinding your work, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right. So just trying to find that balance, growth in that, seeing where it took me. So.
cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, you're off to a hot start in your
Yeah.
real estate career. So,
Yeah.
congrats to that.
Appreciate it.
What are you looking forward to the 2025?
More growth, honestly. That's about it. More business. Learning how to grow and we'll relate it back to basketball as, growing up in basketball. Your main skills are your main skills, and that's what you're going to have to, grow every single day, and while working on the things that you're not very good at.
Yeah.
But making, I was a shooter in basketball, so that was my specialty. So having your own specialty and really grinding those things out, that's where I'm trying to head now. So
That's true. Yeah, focus on that one thing in real
Mm-hmm.
estate. The biggest thing I got out of this podcast, though, is people that have come out here that have been super successful, 98% of the time, they were former athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool because they all say the same, just like you just said there right
Yep.
there. But it was, they apply those principles,
Yep.
to get beat up every day, losing games, losing in practice, and keep moving forward. So glad you're still applying that.
yeah,
So,
every day.
Cool.
Every day.
so let's talk UNLV.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So what do you think of the beginning of the season? What do you think of non-con? I believe we're 8-5.
8-5 now. That's with 2 conference wins, correct? So
Yes.
New Mexico State, and then they just beat Air Force.
So 2-0 start in
2-0
conference.
start in
We're
conference.
first place in conference.
And then, it's the beginning of the season, right?
Very good.
Non-conference, we had, so the game I went to this year was Memphis at UNLV.
Yeah.
Memphis didn't look too great at the beginning, and they were ahead probably the majority of the game. UNLV was, and then they kind of just gave it up at the end. Turnovers, mistakes, leading down to the fourth quarter, second half of the second half is kind of crucial when it comes to pulling games out, and comes to players, comes to coaches. But it's the beginning of the year, so you kind of got to give them a little slack. And then Memphis turns around and goes to where they went to Maui, and they
beat UConn.
Beat UConn. So I mean,
It's a big one. Yeah.
it is. So
UConn's legit. So yeah, it was an interesting game. It was, and I agree with you because I was thinking in the beginning of the season, like, okay, like you kind of, at least we weren't losing to Southern like last year, right? and they kind of let it slip away. But I was like, man, I just felt like they weren't really aggressive in the game. Like Kruger was putting his subs in. It's like, just play your best players. Like, when you're in Mountain West, like, you got to win these games. Yeah. Like, that's the difference of making the tournament or not, unless you win your conference tournament, obviously. So, yeah, it was disappointing because they were up like 12, 14 points, and they're putting all their backups on, like, just keep doing what you're doing, you know, play your best. So, I agree with you.
Their non-conference was a lot weaker this year than it was last year and the years prior. So, I mean, I understand why they do that, but at this point in time in, you know, Kruger's career, some of the players' careers, and, you know, growing forward with the NILs and all that kind of stuff, there's a whole lot of moving parts now. So having that stronger preseason could help out a lot. If they pull one or two of those games out, that looks more impressive than, you know, even if they lose by 5 points, 3 points, you know, then we have like hope, I guess you could say. But having a lower end preseason conference and, you know, all that kind of stuff, it kind of puts a bad taste in some people's mouths and fans and all that kind of stuff. So
I agree with you. Go for those big wins because that really propels you. That's one thing that, like, over the years, UNLV in the past, I feel like they always get like that one big win in the non-con, and you were, I think, part of one of those teams. But
my year we had beaten Indiana in the Maui tournament, and then we lost by like 2 points to UCLA. And then we came back, and then we played at MGM against Oregon, and then we beat Oregon. So we beat two top 15.
I was at that game.
Two top 15 teams in 2 weeks, and then from there kind of just.
And then conference play was not Rice's strength.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that year, but I mean we'll segue it into now. I mean, they just played Air Force. And prior to us going live, we kind of talked a little bit about Air Force's dynamic and how it is up there, and it's like it's a weird arena. And I was explaining to you, like when you walk into the arena, you walk in, and then there's like hockey rinks and everything, and you have to walk down this alley to get to the basketball arena. And when you get there, it's very small, it's compact. You know, you have the elevation, so it is hard to pull them out. And almost every year, Air Force somehow pulls out a win up there. So
they do.
Yeah.
It's like, I think last year they lost like 90-48 at Air Force. I'm like,
Didn't
they got like destroyed.
They beat San Diego State up there too, I think.
Did they really?
I think so.
I think it's elevation, man.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah. And then you have Wyoming.
I was going to say, Wyoming's a tough place too, right?
Colorado State's very hard too. Well, Wyoming's the highest elevation in the Mountain West.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I think in all of college basketball, I think it has the highest elevation. So you get up there, it's just like, we landed, and usually when you get up there, you kind of, or in any off-away game, you get there, you step out, you just shoot around, you know, get some shots up on their rims. But this one was a little bit different. We had to get out, you know, put our shoes on and start running just to kind of get our lungs adjusted to the elevation. So it's completely different.
So I'm curious, in your experience, what was like the toughest place to play in your basketball for UNLV?
In conference or
anywhere?
Non-conference.
Anywhere.
Okay, so
in conference, I want both.
Okay, in conference, I'd probably say San Diego State.
Yeah. Okay.
In Boise State, so funny story. When we were in Boise State, they had this little tactic that when we got there, you know, our shoot-arounds and our practices and everything like that, our ball was, you know, don't quote me, but I believe the balls were very soft. They were, you know, were not blown up a lot. They were deflated a little bit. And then when we get to the game, the ball is just hard. So like you are practicing with like a ball that you're not going to be playing with.
Wow.
So that was one of those. And then San Diego State was so hard because, the majority of my shots came from the corner. Okay. So when the way they have it set up is like when you look at the basket, you look straight through, right? It's just whatever. But there's lights, and they line up exactly with the basket. Okay. So it was probably one of the hardest places to shoot for me. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then non-conference, I would probably say Wichita State. That was when they were really good. Fred VanVleet, they had Baker, they had a lot of those.
Loaded.
Yeah, so they were, and that was probably the loudest place I think I've ever played.
Really? Okay. Yeah, that was my next question, because I know San Diego State can get pretty loud, and it's kind of intimate place. Yeah. And they go out.
Yeah, but it was a dome, so it wasn't that big. So when it was domed, but that was like one of the places you could hear a pin drop or you couldn't hear a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. I love that insight.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So yeah, I was looking at the schedule today. I'm looking at our schedule, and I know we're 8-5, and I'm like, not a great start. The good thing is we didn't have a big loss this year, but we didn't have a big win. But they could have beat Memphis.
Yep.
And then we play at Dayton, who is ranked, and we were up a couple times, almost won that game.
Yep.
And they could have easily been 10-3 right now.
Yeah.
And the difference of the season could have been 10-3, like we're a bubble team, to where we're at right now. So they had a lot of injuries, with Henley being out. Whaley, do you have any information on what's going on?
I do not know about Whaley at all. No, I know he had a killer season last year, and even when I went to the games this year, he doesn't play a lot. So I don't know what that's relating to Bear Cherry or if it's just for him. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he put on some weight again too. So.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I thought he put it back on his weight, but he's only played 2 games.
Yep.
And it's just like Bear Cherry is like the only forward they really have.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't. I think I think the lineup, the top 7 is not that bad.
No.
We got it's funny because in Kruger's rosters in the past, he hasn't had shooters, and now I feel like he finally has shooters, but he's got really just Cherry on the inside, where he used to have like multiple guys he could go to. So, what's kind of like your take on the roster? And
I think that they definitely lack inside. This year, I think they're putting a different offensive scheme into play. Last year, DJ was more of a facilitating guard up front, but now he's just kind of, he's trying to score a lot more, which I get, right? But at the point guard position, it's a little bit harder to get the team going when it's 90% in the point guard's hand, even though it's going to be 85% in the point guard's hand regardless.
Yeah.
But getting more shots up, I think it takes away from the cohesiveness of the offense. But I think he's averaging 18 points a game this year, close to it, or right under 18 points. And then you got Bear Cherry down low. I think that he's had a really good year so far. But it's really hard to kind of get that flow in the offense. And I don't generally typically like that offensive scheme that they're running right now.
Okay.
But that's just a personal preference. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're a shooter.
Yeah, especially for a shooter though. I mean, I know that I can't remember his name now, but the shooter that they have now, number 20, he's a hell of a shooter, but a lot of his shots are coming from off the dribble and, coming off screens. And I feel like he needs to come off more screens and kind of get more flow in the offense. So,
yeah. Cool. So what do you think of going into conference play? Now it seems like besides Whaley, it seems like they're a little bit more healthier looking down the road of the conference. What are your thoughts, projections? And
I think that, right now anyways, they don't have a lot of returners that played in the Mountain West. So I think it's a little bit of a different dynamic in the Mountain West. I think Mountain West is a pretty solid conference, but it is completely different from, a lot of the East Coast schools or Big 12, Pac-10, like Pac-12. Those conferences play a little bit more, open offense. Now Mountain West is more structured. You got Wyoming, who runs a structured offense. Utah State runs a structured offense. And they get into these motion sets that are going to be a little bit harder for, I think, this team. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to make a big difference because it's kind of looking like they got to go lights out in conference play or they got to win the tournament. And right now, it seems like the conference is a little bit down this year. I think, like you talked about earlier with NIL and transfers, it's affected the conference because now a lot of those players are, San Diego State got crushed in transfer portal.
Yeah, they did.
We're seeing a big shift, but it looks like it's Utah State projected in the top 37 right now. The New Mexico Boise are kind of on the bubble, so it looks like it's going to be a 2 to 3 seed tournament for the Mountain West this year. So. We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
A lot riding on the season because this is Kruger's 4th year.
Yep.
So what do you think? At the end of the year, is Kruger going in year 5? Are we looking at a different coach?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a hard one because it's like it's completely different now, right? So like you can't put everything on the coach, but you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Right. They're just saying like if it's a big win, you say okay, great players, like they had a great offense, and then when they take losses, it's the coach, right? Every single time, any sport, any type of situation, right? Now I think that with all these moving parts now, as far as NIL goes, as far as football having their great season, that could either take it one or two ways. They just kind of, forget about the basketball team and like let them do what they do, and then they push more of their energy into the football team, or they're using some of that for the basketball team. So we'll see how, because right now, anyways, it's about money, right? Like that's how it is. There's no more student athlete, right? It's just athlete, right? You even see like the Miami coach, how he's been there for, I don't know, probably like 20 years, maybe even more. He retired. He's just like, I can't do this anymore. I came to college for college sports, not for professional sports.
Yeah.
Having to deal with agents and people dealing with money for these kids, and kids just wanting to transfer after they went to the Final Four. They had, I think, like 6 transfers.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the school, has nothing to do with the coach, has nothing to do with the program. It's just where they can get more money. So that's going to be hard for recruiting.
It's true. It's a totally different landscape. And the coaches, I'm more like a football guy, so I rely on you for like basketball because I'm just like a fan. But I'm not like, expert like you are on the sport. But I know for football, I mean, it's kind of funny because like the norm is like 20 guys go in the portal. Yep. And every year, the fan base just freaks out. The program's falling apart. I'm like, this is just the new normal. Kids are going to go in there. And why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like, unless you're like, hey, I'm staying in Vegas, my family's here, whatever. I'm born and raised, or you really most kids are going to be like, hey, I can always come back.
Yeah.
But if I go out there and I get an offer, how many of those kids are playing the NFL or NBA? It's not going to be a ton. So that's your kind of opportunity. So I think a lot of kids probably should take that opportunity, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I would do the same thing if I was in college again, right? And then even that they have a new rule coming out for junior college players, right? Like they can go to junior college for 2 years and it doesn't take away eligibility for Division I. So there's so many different routes that kids can take now that I think can benefit them to grow. But like I said, a student athlete is no more. So
yeah, it's a different dynamic. And I even heard the other day, like now they're pushing that there might be like no more years for eligibility, which would just seem crazy to me. And obviously they're going to fix that.
Yeah.
Like I doubt that's ever going to come to terms. They're just going. NCAA is just a complete mess.
Yeah.
I'm sure you agree with that.
Yep.
But I guess go back a little bit. So I think this is pretty obvious. But the UNLV roster, who's the MVP of this roster this year? I
mean, obviously it's got to be DJ, right?
Yeah.
Point guard, head of the team. He's playing well. But I think, as a scorer, I think he's elevated his game a little bit. Yeah. But this is a team sport as well. So, in saying that, I do believe that he's MVP. Yeah. I think that they need to be more cohesive as a team, though.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I figured you were going to say that, but I'm more curious. Who do you think is? I felt like there's a couple of surprises on the roster. There's been I think the biggest disappointment this year has been the injuries, and they've been kind of really depleted. And that's really hurt them. But where would you go? What do you say would be like your surprise guy that you've been really impressed with when you've seen play?
I think Bear's pretty dominant down low.
Yeah.
He's been very dominant down low.
He's a big guy.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I thought about Whaley last year.
Yeah.
So, I think he took that position of where Whaley was. But he's been very consistent this year.
Yeah.
Every game, his field goal percentage is probably in the 70s, 80s maybe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, and he's a big dude too. So you can only play him so much.
Yeah.
But he's been getting in foul trouble in games, and that's really hurts when he's out. You see the difference.
For sure.
My surprise, and I kind of knew about Cherry when got him because it was between us and San Diego State. I'm like, San Diego State's recruiting. I'm like, it's probably pretty good. But and he was a great surprise. But the guy that surprised me actually the most, who was like the last guy on the roster was Rishwain, the transfer from Florida who played at San Francisco. The guy is the starting guard, and he's shooting like 41% from three.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, when they added him, I'm like, oh, it's just a filler. Like he's not going to play.
Yeah.
He's just a backup, and he's playing starter minutes, and he's a contributor.
He's been playing really well.
I like Bedford coming off the bench. He's been good defensively. Henley can get to the hoop. So I like the Corbett Hill. Amazing story coming off the ACL, and that guy can defend. I mean, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen is from Vegas, so went to Oklahoma, with Dad Kruger, and he's now with son Kruger. So, no, he's been very consistent, right? Like it doesn't show up on the stat sheet as much as just the impact on the game. If you were to look at a per 40, if you were to look at his plus minuses, I bet you that's where he'd shine the most. But yeah, he makes a huge impact on the game. Whether it's probably not going to be points. It's going to be rebounds, steals, all the hard working plays. So
he does. He's fun to watch. Lead defender. It's fun to watch him. So my thoughts. I mean, obviously, I hope we win out, go to the conference tournament. Kruger gets an extension. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong.
It's where the money goes, though.
Yeah,
we'll see. Because even when I was playing there, it was kind of just depending on the money, right? Like, coaches are now going to require a lot more, especially that these kids are probably going to be making more than them. You know what I mean? So it's like it gives a completely different perspective for a coach than it does, a player as well. So it's like it was kind of I always say it's like more of like a respect thing, right? Now we're kind of going M for M, right? Now we're kind of going band for band. So it's like as a coach, you would have that requirement for the respect.
Yeah.
In the NBA, it's a little bit different, right? You got JJ Redick and LeBron James, right? They're the same age, whatever it is, and now it's respect, but it's like we're making money, right? Either way, we're making money. It doesn't really matter who's taking control, but you can't have a college kid taking control of the coach here. So now it gives completely different perspective on, I think, coaching and everything and what direction they go into.
I think that's a great perspective, especially, because, I mean, you could be a point guard of a team and making as much as the coach or more.
Yeah.
I never actually even thought about it, but it's very true.
Yep.
The NIL that they're getting out there right now is...
It's crazy.
And, I mean, these are young kids. I mean, I know how I wasn't the smartest kid when I was like 18, 19 years old. I can't imagine having millions of dollars in the bank.
Yep.
I don't know if that would have been a positive thing for me. But, I mean, good for them. They should get all the money they can get, for sure. So, and take advantage of it. Invest it. Real estate.
Exactly. Segue.
So, all right. So, let's segue into football season.
All right. Let's do it.
2024. What'd you think?
Great year. It was a great year for UNLV football.
Right?
I mean, it's changing UNLV completely from a basketball school to a football school.
Yeah.
They have all the, big amenities of UNLV now, and I think that's what is lacking in basketball a little bit more is they have greater stadium. They get to play in the NFL stadium. They're going to get a lot more money this year, especially being ranked in the kind of season that they had.
Yeah.
But hell of a season.
Yeah. It was so fun to watch. I think I went to all the games, except for San Diego State, but Syracuse broke my heart. That game broke my heart. That was a BS game. I don't know. It wouldn't have mattered at the day because Boise State would have beat us. Yep. Boise State was clearly the better team, but Barry Odom just did an amazing job with the program. Perfect guy, just a culture guy, and it's exciting. Congrats to Barry Odom going to Purdue, getting just big money. What is it, 39 million guaranteed?
Huge.
Because everybody's like, why is he going to Purdue? Because that's a hard place. Lafayette in Indiana, that's a hard place to win. Like, honestly, I think UNLV kind of have a little bit more opportunities to get in the playoffs, but UNLV ain't paying $39 million guaranteed for a football coach. So congrats to Barry Odom. You just set yourself up for generations.
But it's just 35, right?
Huh?
So it's just $35 million now.
Yeah. But Dan Mullen is the new coach. What are your thoughts of the hire and going into 2025?
Yeah. So he had a great career as a coach. He retired for a couple of years. Where was he at? Mississippi State, and then he went down to Florida.
Yep.
He had two really top tier football schools.
Yeah.
And like he was saying, I was watching the Pat McAfee video on Coach Dan Mullen, and he was kind of just talking about like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's so nice not having to wake up at 3 a.m. for these recruiting calls, blah 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 blah. But now, seeing him come into UNLV, I think it's going to be huge for the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And it's really cool because he has such a presence, right? Like Barry Odom wasn't on Pat McAfee. He wasn't on Colin Coward. I mean, it puts UNLV back on the map.
Yep.
He has an opportunity. We'll see, because you never know. It seems like the home run hire.
Yep.
But he has an opportunity to take it to the next level, and he had a ton of success. If we're Mississippi State West, they got the defensive coordinator from Mississippi State.
Yep.
That'd be pretty good, because it's pretty much the same. I like Eric Harper, his moves, and I'm super curious if there is a coaching change of how Harper's going to, if he uses kind of the same model he did with Barry and Dan, is get a head coach with experience that just didn't work out somewhere, that a bigger platform like the SEC, and because there's such a big difference, at least in football. You bring in backups of the SEC, they're all Mountain West players. So it'll be kind of interesting how that works, if he has the same game plan, or either way, it looks like he's 2 for 2 on his hires. People give Harper a lot of grief. I'm not sure why.
Oh, I don't know why.
Because he just...
No idea.
He's hiring very well for football. I know, like, at Harvard basketball school, though. So it's... We want that... I think at the end of the day, but it's cool to go to a Reno game, to a Boise game, and there's 40,000 fans. The fans are there.
Oh, yeah. And football,
We can get the MAC back, and we can get it packed, and we can get sold out again. It's just they got to win.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you got to win.
You have to.
Yeah.
There's no hype behind anything that they're doing for the basketball.
Yeah. Now.
Right? Like, especially when I was there, we had Stacey Augmon as our coach.
Yeah.
He wanted the head coaching job. They just didn't give it to him. I think they're trying to just kind of release everything from that Jerry Tarkanian era. Don't know why, but that's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It'll be fun to see how it plays out. But so before I let you go, we got to talk a little bit of real estate.
I guess so.
I know you're growth minded. You want to crush it this year. What are your thoughts going to 2025? You've been in the market for 3 years. What are you seeing? Any predictions of real estate for the market?
I mean, it's it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to happen within the first 6 months of this year. I think the latter half of this year, I think that is when people are going to really start opening up. The administration is going to be changing in the White House, and I'm interested in seeing how that's going to go, and kind of what sides clears up, all that kind of stuff, and seeing where the market and the economy goes. But what do you think?
I think it's going to be a really good year.
Yeah,
I think we're in a good year. Yeah, I've seen. 2 years ago, nobody would talk to me about real estate. Last year, finally, I get people talking to me about real estate again. And this year, it seems like people are kind of in that motion. I agree with you, though, too, because I do think they're going to have multiple rate cuts, and that's going to take time. I think you hit on the nose. The second half of the year, the interest rates are probably going to be back in the 5s, realistically, which is going to be very healthy. And as we know, it's like spring is always the hottest time of the year. It's kind of like our saving grace as realtors. So I think we're kind of out of the woodworks a little bit. I read an article the other day on Realtor. Was it Realtor.com or Redfin? I think it was one of the two. I can't remember. They're predicting 12%. Usually when you see a 12% appreciation for Vegas, usually when you see these things, and we appreciated 12% this year.
This year, yeah.
And the numbers look like, and we've already seen applications go up going into this year with interest rates going. So we're probably having more sales going here, and the inventory just went down 1,000 points. I'm talking way too much real estate stats. I'm nerding out on this, but it's looking really healthy, I think, I think 12%, I think, is realistic, especially with everybody moving out here. So,
I think right now when it's getting cold other places and it's still really nice here, I think that's when a lot of people are going to be looking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think like the rest of the nation, they're going to feel it. But we're kind of lucky here because we're a little bit in a bubble. And the infrastructure's good. We have Californians moving out here. There's a lot of money moving out here. I mean, half of our buyers are,
out of state.
They're out of state, And there's a new building going up or a new stadium going up every year. So
it'll be a basketball town here in a few years. So
So once we do, hit this guy up. He's gonna help you buy and sell real estate. So, Man, I
Sweet.
want to thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Guys, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you, Austin Starr. Really appreciate you guys are looking for real estate. This guy's your man. He's a rock star. Really appreciate your insight in UNLV basketball. I get to nerd out on basketball for 30 minutes. Guilty pleasure. Guys, take care of yourselves today. This is Run Vegas. John Mack, have a good day.